So we're at the dawn of a new industrial revolution to solve climate change. What governments need to do is act in 4 areas. First of all is to stimulate demand. That's how we solve the chicken and egg problem. That can be done through government purchasing, or it can be done by mandatory quotas. Secondly, to incentivize supply. Supply will follow demand, but actually quite often the price points are just too high. So there's a role for grants, there's a role for subsidies for manufacturing. Thirdly, it's really important to get the investment climate right. So policymakers can really help by providing one-stop shop, for example, for permits and planning, just to make it easy for those that are building new infrastructure to get off the ground. And fourthly, is just to level the playing field. We need to make sure that we stop subsidies for fossil fuel users and suppliers. So acting in 4 areas, and I think that will help us to solve the chicken and egg problem. So over the next 10 to 15 years, we're going to see a complete replumbing, a rewiring of the economy. And that means that investors really need to look beyond the end of their nose, to look over that sort of time frame, certainly 5 years, but preferably 10 years and even 15 years, to see what the winners of tomorrow are going to look like. And that means looking more closely at smaller and mid-sized companies, which could be or probably will be tomorrow's giants. And the other thing that investors need to do is to just look more carefully at risk. We're going to see climate risk affect all areas of society and all investment portfolios. Transition risk as we move to this new economy, and physical risk as weather and atmospheric changes really disrupt business as usual. So a broader radar sweep of risk and a longer term review of how risk can affect portfolios. So Impax is working for a large number of institutional investors around the world, and what those investors really like, alongside our pursuit of great risk-adjusted returns, is our work in other areas. So for example, in the policy space, we're sitting down with regulators, with policymakers to help to shape regulations that will unlock these new markets for a low-carbon economy. That means participating in cross-sectoral fora with corporates, with people from banks and insurance companies, as well as with policymakers themselves, to try and work out what optimal regulation looks like. The second thing we're doing is participating in, and to some degree, funding research. So we've worked, for example, with Imperial College in London to design and run a program on physical climate risk and how that can be incorporated into investment portfolios. And more recently, we've worked with AP7, which is one of the big pension funds in Sweden, to develop a program to research water risk and the impact of investment on the water resource. And the third thing we're doing is supporting a small number of non-profits who are working in our areas. So in particular, we've been working with Ashton, which is a non-profit that's helping to catalyse the work of charities in the clean energy space. And we've also been providing some funding for Client Earth, which is a very powerful legal firm working on climate issues. So all in all, that rounded approach to addressing climate change and environmental problems, a transition to a more sustainable economy, is something that's not just about investment.